We're not just looking at the best strikers in MMA, we're looking for the guys who ripped up the rulebook. Guys like Michael Venom Page, who took the traditional notion of what a striker should be in mixed martial arts and decided to take things in an entirely different direction. MVP's point karate background allows him to slip in and out of range with a truly sensational level of fluidity. He's just about as close as it gets to a genuine cobra in the cage. Though he's been stifled by well-placed leg kicks and solid wrestlers in the past, if you choose to go punch for punch or kick for kick with Page, good luck getting out of there in one piece. MVP's talents will finally be tested in the UFC when he debuts this month, and for our money, he's a long overdue addition to the promotion's welterweight roster. Francis Ngannou might not seem like an obvious pick within the context of great strikers, but hear us out. Ngannou changed the game because of his natural punching power, bringing an equalizer to the table that we've never seen the likes of. No fighter in MMA history has been blessed with a nuclear option quite like the Predator. He doesn't even need to land cleanly to get the job done. No, a Francis Ngannou matchup is a straightforward showdown. This guy just has the ability to make the tension totally unbearable in there, and more often than not, it takes him a matter of seconds to put his opponent away. He hits harder than Mark Hunt, than Derek Lewis, Roy Nelson, Shane Carwin, Sergey Pavlovich. They all pale in comparison. And the fact that his power translates to the 12-ounce gloves of the boxing ring tells you everything you need to know. No kicker in MMA history has had the type of widely acknowledged impact that Mirko Cro Cop was able to achieve during his prime. The phrase right leg hospital, left leg cemetery was designed specifically to explain just how devastating this man was with either leg. And when you consider the range of fighting icons that Cro Cop managed to finish with his kicks, it's easy to see why we included him here. He was an early example of a true two-sport athlete. A guy who was very capable and well-rounded in MMA, but also good enough in striking alone that he could compete in K1, a legend in every sense of the word. Like MVP, Stephen Thompson's striking background translated to MMA with immediate results. That hopping Kyokushin karate stance allowed him to mesmerize his opponents. And unlike Michael Venom Page, Wonderboy actually took this style all the way to the very top of the 170-pound weight class, going 2 fights with the champion Tyron Woodley, and losing the series by a very narrow margin. Thompson was an insanely good and awkward striker, boasting a style that was unique to him. There was no training partner you could bring in to give you an exact read on Wonderboy. No, most of these guys were forced to learn on the job against him, and a lot of them ended up with big L's on their record because of it. Remember, if you're enjoying this content, be sure to leave a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a single upload. When it comes to kickers in the lower weight classes, no fighter has ever brought a more diverse and truly deadly kicking game to the table than Edson Barboza. Not only was he the first UFC fighter to ever score a KO with a spinning wheel kick, that Terry Edom knockout that holds up to this day as an all-time great finish, but he also revolutionized the leg kicking game, becoming a holder of several leg kick TKOs. And as he aged, he only continued to add tools to his arsenal, using his boxing in a wide range of knees and elbows to become a nightmare matchup at featherweight too. Barboza does a lot of things extremely well, and his highlight reel is as good as any fighter of his era. Conor McGregor revolutionized quite a lot of things within the mixed martial arts game. Most of them are certainly more relevant outside of the octagon. But to downplay just how exceptional his trademark left hand was would be foolish. The greatest single-skill specialists in MMA have a way of making their preferred route to victory inevitable. In other words, the fans, the media, and their opponents all know what's coming, but stopping it from happening is another challenge entirely. McGregor's left hand is so incredibly fine-tuned that it was a practically unstoppable weapon during his prime. His accuracy with it was truly exceptional, and his bouncing karate style and that legendary pullback counter revolutionized counterpunching in the sport. Those years between 2013 and 2016 contained some of the greatest striking we've ever seen in the MMA cage. Who knows if he can ever find his way back to that kind of form again, but at this stage, it's looking less and less likely. Georges St. Pierre is another guy who revolutionized quite a lot within the MMA skill set, including takedown setups, game planning, and the idea of a dignified retirement for a champion and superstar seemingly at the peak of his powers. But GSP, despite his wrestle-heavy approach, changed the way that the jab was looked at in the sport, using this weapon to win entire title fights. Boxing and MMA is still some way behind the type of skills found in the sport of boxing itself, but the way that GSP used his jab made it painfully clear just how far MMA had to go. St. Pierre would dominate opponents with this weapon, either as a rangefinder for his inevitable takedown attempt or as a primary weapon for an entire 25-minute performance. George's wrestling is always pointed to as his greatest strength, but that jab was something special. His talent would likely still hold up to this day. The original Karate Kid in mixed martial arts, Lyoto Machida, brought a completely new style to the table, one that left all of his initial opponents totally bamboozled in the cage. Lyoto's swift footwork, his constant bouncing, and the wide range of untelegraphed weapons that he could switch between with very little notice. These all made the Dragon a fearsome competitor. His blitzing style of punching was extremely difficult to get a read on too. And though his volume was always in play, Machida had one-shot knockouts in his repertoire too, obviously with regular head kicks, but also with some of the wildest techniques imaginable. When Lyoto KO'd the great Randy Couture with a crane kick to the face, time truly stood still. And the fact that he managed to score a front kick on Vitor Belfort that perfectly mirrored Anderson Silva's legendary knockout from a decade early. Yeah, Lyoto was a true great of this sport. Israel Adesanya might have split people down the middle towards the later days of his title reign, but this guy's abilities on the feet were never in question. His footwork might be the greatest we've ever seen in MMA, just as his defensive head movement gives him the perfect complement to it. His best performances showcased a guy who was light years ahead of his competition. So ahead, in fact, that he seemed pretty comfortable taking his foot off the gas, leading to a few less than spectacular performances. But Izzy's game planning, his composure, and his technical mastery really made him stand out until he eventually hit a rough patch of form. But do not doubt this great fighter's ability to win it all back again. That is how good the last stylebender is. And finally, we come to the obvious pick, the guy whose poster was on every young rising fighter's wall as they grew up. Anderson Silva was a magician, a fearless warrior in the cage who had a sense of fun and creativity to him that no athlete has ever come close to. Silva loved fighting, and that really shone through in his performances. The Spider invited danger in a way that most fighters never would. He dropped his hands, calling on his opponents to attempt to hit him. He tried weird techniques that most wouldn't even dream of. And while sure, in the end, it was his fooling around with Chris Weidman that got him KO'd in their first fight, but this was one of the greatest examples of a fighter living by the sword and dying by the sword. There will never be another mixed martial artist quite like Anderson Silva. If you enjoyed today's video, show your support by leaving a like and a comment before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any content week to week.